I've heard a lot of things since the world fell apart. Voices on broken loops, screams that cut off too soon. Even the dead, they moan, they shuffle, they wail. But this sound? This was something else entirely. It screeched, loud enough to shake dust loose from the rock ceiling, deep enough to vibrate the bones in my teeth. It didn't sound hungry. It sounded angry. I turned toward the wall. Todd was already moving, grabbing his gear like he'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Thomas snapped the saw back into ready position, barrel aimed toward the mouth of the cave. One of the new guys, the one with the limp, just stared at the bricks, frozen like a man waiting for the ocean to swallow him. And then we heard it. Scraping, no digging, claws on brick and stone. Heavy, purposeful. The thing didn't try to come in through the door. Started tearing a hole through the damn wall. The entire left side of the structure groaned under the pressure. I could hear barbed wire snapping. Dust poured in through the seams. Someone yelled, "It's breaching, move!" And then, boom, the wall collapsed. Not like a bomb, not all at once. It caved in like something massive had punched through from the other side. Like a living wrecking ball with bones and rage behind it. We opened fire instantly. Rounds from the M249 shredded the dust cloud. I heard the pop 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 of rifles and the heavier bark of Todd's sidearm. Brass clinked on the cave floor, echoing off stone. The cave filled with smoke and noise and recoil, and then it jumped through the hole. I saw it in a single flash. Mangled tactical vest, half a gas mask fused into the side of its rotting head, arms swollen and corded with inhuman muscle. Still wearing remnants of a National Guard uniform. This thing used to be one of them. It hit the ground like a gorilla on all fours, and for a moment we thought it was down. It wasn't. It rose. Bullets tore through it, flesh, bone, fabric. But it didn't care. It sprinted forward with an awful, animalistic speed. The injured new guy tried to hobble backward, but the thing was on him in 2 steps. It grabbed him by the chest, lifted him off the ground like a child's toy, and bit. Once. No screaming, just a sickening crunch and the thud of a body hitting the ground like wet laundry. That silence was worse than screaming. I turned to run. Didn't get far. The juggernaut caught me by the back of the collar, ripped straight through my Carhartt jacket like it was paper. I hit the floor hard, cheek against the stone, and when I looked up it was already lowering its face toward mine. Jaws wide, breath sour like hot meat left in the sun. Its teeth touched my throat. Then wham, something struck it from behind. A metallic crunch. A grunt. Todd stood over it, field shovel gripped like a battle axe, coated in gore. He'd driven it straight into the back of the thing's skull. It roared, spasmed, dropped me, but didn't fall. It stumbled, then hissed, and then it ran, back through the hole. Fast, too fast. We stood there in the dust and blood and empty gun barrels. One of the new guys, the last one, moved forward in shock, staring down at what was left of the other soldier. I looked too. No face, just a bite. One bite, clean, quiet, and final. Todd bent down, retrieved the dog tags. Didn't say a word. We didn't have to. We left the cave minutes later. No discussion, no gear check. Just got out. We expected more of them, zombies in the trees, the groan of a fresh horde. But the woods were quiet, still, like the thing that found us had scared even them off. That thought stuck with me. Even the dead are afraid of it. We reached the abandoned gas station just as the first bit of daylight cracked the horizon. The Humvee? Completely trashed. Tires slashed, engine shot through, radio torn out like someone, or something, had wanted to make sure we couldn't leave. But the Corolla? She started. Barely. Todd gave me one look, like a silent question. I nodded, and we drove. Back to the only place I could think of. Back to the radio tower shack on the other side of Martin County. The antenna was gone. The lights were off. But the walls were still there. And for one more night, that was enough. We made it. Somehow, the Corolla ran like hell the whole way. Engine knocking, low on oil, stinking of wet dog and old gas. But she never quit. Every pothole in Martin County rattled through my spine. But 20 minutes later, we rolled up to the place I used to call home. My old Radio Shack. Not the best spot in Inez, but it was mine. Just a boxy wooden building tucked behind a thick spot of foliage up a small hill. Windows still boarded, chain link fence leaning at a 40-degree angle. Last time I left, I'd packed in a rush. Cans, batteries, half a toolkit, piles of dirty clothes left in the corner. Now it was just quiet. We parked out back, hidden by the shadow of a busted billboard. Todd checked the perimeter, Thomas covered the door, and I went straight for the lock. Still jammed just like I left it. Keys still taped up under the rain gutter. Small miracles. Inside, the place felt almost untouched. No fresh footprints, no broken glass, no stench of rot. The only thing missing was the mess I'd made grabbing gear for the road. That, and the old radio antenna, still bolted to the Corolla's trunk. We locked down the windows, pulled an old desk across the door, and finally sat. Todd slumped down with his back to the cinder block. Thomas set his rifle aside, breathing steady but shallow. I collapsed into my ratty office chair, the springs groaning, and let my nerves finally come undone. For the first time in days, nobody talked. Just the sound of settling, gear clinking, someone coughing, the wind brushing against warped plywood. Then the new guy, the other survivor, the one we'd barely noticed in the panic, spoke. Voice hoarse, almost surprised to hear himself. "My name's Josh McCoy." He looked up at us, eyes still glassy but a little clearer now. "I only joined the Guard to pay for college. Never thought I'd, you know." He trailed off, staring at the empty radio rack in the corner. Todd gave a tired nod. "You're here now. That's all that matters." I could see a little bit of hope in Josh's face, buried under the fear. We didn't have much, no working station, no power, and damn near no food. But for the first time since that screech in the cave, it almost felt safe. Even if it was only for tonight. We tried to rest. The bourbon worked its magic, loosening tongues and letting us laugh for real, for the first time in what felt like forever. Even Josh, who'd barely spoken, managed a story about skipping class and flunking a pop quiz. By midnight, we were sprawled out in the dust, passing the peanuts and the bottle, boots off, shoulders down. We even forgot about the world for a while. We drifted off one by one. I don't know how long I was out. Could have been minutes, could have been an hour, when Todd's hand clapped my shoulder, shaking me awake. "Something's wrong," he whispered. The place was pitch black except for a faint, flickering light from the radio console. I blinked, trying to make sense of the scene. The lights hadn't come on, but there was power, just a trickle. The breaker box must have caught a random surge, maybe from a downed line or some dying generator somewhere else in town. The old broadcast unit screen was glowing blue. Then it happened. A sudden, violent burst of static, like a gunshot in the quiet. The console, half dead for days, suddenly screeched out a piercing test tone. Not music, not a voice, just a high, steady wail, louder than any siren I'd heard since the fall. It echoed down the hallways, bounced off the concrete, and spilled out into the street through every crack in the cinder block walls. Everyone jumped up. Todd cursed, Thomas dove for the board, Josh covered his ears. I lunged for the switch, slamming my hand down, but it took a second. A long, drawn-out second for the shriek to die. And in that pause, when the sound finally cut, I heard it. The shuffling outside. Groans, clattering footsteps, hands dragging on brick and glass. We'd just announced our hiding spot to half of Inez. Not with light, not with hope, but with noise. The noise wouldn't die. No matter how I twisted the dials or yanked the cords, that goddamn console kept howling, rattling the windows and drilling through my skull. It was like the end of the world was screaming right through the walls, and the dead came running. At first, just shadows pressed against the broken glass. Then dozens, then hundreds. Hands, faces, teeth, all mashed against every inch of cinder block, hungry for the source of the sound. Todd snapped into command mode. Red east window, Josh back room, Thomas, with me at the front. He was already braced by the door, AR-15 shouldered, eyes down the scope. Josh took the far side, knuckles white around his pistol. I scrambled for cover, radio buzzing in my ear, heart hammering. Then hell broke loose. Thomas squeezed the trigger on the M249, and the house shook with every burst. Empty brass clattering across the linoleum, bodies piling by the porch. Todd's rifle barked, clean and deliberate, each shot dropping another groaning corpse. Josh was firing too, wild and desperate, missing more than he hit, but not giving up. I ducked down behind a toppled shelf, yanking at the cable until, with a spark and a pop, the static died. But it was too late, way too late. The windows cracked. A hand punched through, fingers clawing at the air. Thomas's M249 clicked empty. He cursed under his breath, lips curled in a grimace, sweat streaking the dirt on his face. I heard Todd yell, "Fall back! To the car, move!" Todd shot the hinges off the front door, booted it wide, and the night air flooded in, thick with rot and panic. He turned to us, voice sharp, "Corolla, now, don't stop." We bolted. Outside, the world was a river of dead. Too many to drive through, too many to shoot through. That's when Thomas made his choice. He stopped short, dropping the M249 and unsheathing his knife. He grabbed at Todd's shoulder, slashing the duffel strap with one clean motion. Todd tried to stop him, but Thomas was already moving, already grinning, eyes wild with adrenaline and something close to peace. Over the radio, his voice crackled, "Get to the Corolla and don't fucking look back. When the noise starts, you leave, Sergeant. Get the civilian and the rookie out." I looked back and saw him, duffel in hand, running straight into the mob. He ran through what used to be the doorway, armed the explosives that were in Todd's bag, cranked the volume, and let the music fly, old metal, loud and proud, drowning out even the moans of the dead. From somewhere inside, Pantera, Slayer, something fast and mean and angry, and Thomas screaming, "Hey, over here. Come on, you sons of bitches." Todd stood frozen for a second, just 1 second, his hand gripping the wheel, eyes locked on the chaos. I saw it, the tear sliding down his face, shining in the strobe of the radio's last gasp. But he slammed the gear into drive. We punched it through the narrow path, scraping paint and tearing through the smallest seam in the horde. Josh Dove in the back seat, Todd white-knuckled at the wheel, and I couldn't even look back. Not at Thomas, not at what we left behind, not at the end of the world. But we made it out, alive for now, and somewhere behind us, the night lit up, and the music stopped.